I'm Zbigniew Bochniarz, and I'm affiliated now, besides World Academy of Art and Science, with University of Washington in Seattle. And I am already 30 years in the United States, but I am building bridges across Atlantic over those years. And I am also affiliated with the Warsaw School of Economics and the Rzeszów School of Business, which hosted our 2 years project on effective clusters, which I would like to share with you some optimistic results, because there was a lot of pessimism during the conference, and threats, and then I want to bring some good news. Okay. So, can we start? Okay, good. I would like to talk about shared value-based education. This is something what we discovered in our project called Effective Clusters, the base of innovation and source for sustainable regional development. I need to put, where's the presentation? F5. Just a second. Okay. Doesn't work. I always look for the youngest in the room, my students. They always fix. Impressor? Okay, which one? Okay, hey, thank you very much, Tanya. Thank you. Okay, I am also affiliated with the microeconomics of competitiveness at the Harvard Business School, which I will apply the method today in this presentation, because this is this is an interdisciplinary project, but one of the leading methods we applied was microeconomics. And of course, besides, we use the institutional analysis, development economics, sociology, and of course, the queen of science, philosophy. Anyway, we had to produce two products from these projects, develop new methodology of industrial cluster evaluation, and produce the book of best practices. So the project this is the end of introduction of the project, but from the formal point of view, I have to mention that the results were financed by the Polish government and European Union, 50-50, and it was the first project. I brought money from Europe to the United States to hire American researchers and professors. Usually over 30 years I was bringing money from the United States, from US taxpayers' money to Europe, mostly to Central Eastern Europe. So I was very pleased with this one. I want to focus on the following issues. I think that as an economist, I would be really down to earth. I learned a lot from philosophers, sociologists, future studies experts, but as an economist, we are very concrete. And also, I want to tell you that the future starts today. And then I see some germs for the future, which I would like to pay attention and discuss, and how we can use these seeds, which are already growing slowly, to facilitate the growth and to contribute to the paradigm shift, paradigm change. So we need, of course, there was a lot of talks about human capital, less about social capital, and it was my major area of interest in this project. But we need also to work hard on broad coalition. And then I would focus on shared value, try to define this because it's relatively new. And as the way of transforming, or some people say saving capitalism from the bads they produce. And then I will briefly present the role of industrial clusters and their contribution to human social capital and to shared values, and use the examples of shared values from Poland first, and then few from the States. Because, as Mila said, this session was designed for show disadvantages, regions, disadvantages, societies, communities. So I will be using example from one of the poorest region in Poland. So, and then we'll come to some conclusions. I didn't hear much complaints about, during these sessions, about ourselves, whether we prepared in the current academia. I heard a lot of complaints on business, on the outside. I think that we need to look inside ourselves. Are we really shaping the new generation, which will be the paradigm shifters? I think that we have also a lot to change in our areas, how we shape the human capital, how do we enough pay attention to so-called soft skills which produce social capital, communication, collaboration, and so on. And then we blame everything on business, or most of us, business or governments. I think that, sure, that they deserve. But we need to think also in terms of resources for this huge process, for paradigm change, where there are resources, not in the government, because the government do not produce goods. I mean, the resources, they only divide. We need to reach the business community. They are the most in control of resources. And also, they create very important, they offer very important element, jobs. I am so frustrated. This is one of my major concerns when I see millions of young people, particularly, without jobs. And this is one of the reasons that we need to work with business to educate this way, that our graduates have jobs after they completed studies. I'm proud to be affiliated with the University of Washington, which recently was listed by Reuters as the most innovative public university, and in overall number 4. And the interesting thing is that our graduates from June, 80% of them are hired by the end of the year. And this is something which is very important. You know, this is the way how we teach, how we learn. We are moving away from lecturing, by the way. So this is the big trend. And I used to work 22 years at the University of Minnesota. The same process. We are giving up just lecturing. We are doing action research. We are problem solving and building the community, which is really very, very intensive process. And then this is our responsibility of academia. I didn't hear anything during this conference. Of course, there were so many interesting sessions, but we should think about ourselves. So anyway, and business, you know, caused this, of course, is one major contributor to the crisis. But, you know, the issue is how to convert this problem, the business, into solution, how to bring them to resolve those facing us, threats and problems. So this is what I would like to focus, and we show some results. So we defined the human capital as a unique form of capital, which has the ability to put all other forms together. And this is the only form of capital which is creative. And this is the creativity we heard a lot today, but nobody tried to answer or tell me why the incoming kids to kindergarten are regarded 80–90% creative when they are living with master or bachelor degree, only 5–10% are creative. What's going on in the education system? Besides that, I think that I didn't hear much during this conference about human capital, how it is shaped by corporations, by companies. They spend significant resources for training and education. This is also very important when we are talking about paradigm shift. By the way, in terms of human capital, I defined as a combination of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. And this is something very important because, particularly in the United States, in Canada, we pay a lot of attention of the right proportions. I observed, I grew up in Poland, I used to teach at the Warsaw School 17 years. We focus 80–70% on knowledge. And then I see now, very serious problems. And then our students are coming to US or to the top British universities. They are in troubles. One even had suffered depression. Why? Because she was excellent student, straight A's. But they require from them to work with team, to work on the other. They say, why? This is my knowledge, this is my asset. So somehow turning, this is really big problem. And then, this is something what we are producing graduates which do not fit to the contemporary world. We need to be much critical what we are doing. So I guess I moved too fast, I guess. The other category, how can I turn back? Okay. We redefine social capital, and then we want to define this way we could measure, because for economists, at least, it's not satisfactory if we hear that this is poor or rich social capital. If you cannot measure, you cannot manage, because you don't have the criteria. So I will show you how we measure, but we treat the social capital as investment, time investment in building relations, which produce the common values, shared values, mutual understanding, and this is probably what is most important, which is very lacking, trust, mutual trust, which helps to innovate, which helps to resolve problems. So this is why we prepared a series of measurements for a group of indicators, from number of associations through the level of trust to performance of existing institutions, and to the results, economic, social, and environmental. What is the shared value? Shared values, I follow my colleague, Michael Porter and Mark Kramer, who defined the shared value as policies which enhance competitiveness of a company or a cluster, simultaneously advance economic, social, and environmental issues. So, in which they operate. So this is somehow shared value is a bridge to reach out the community they work. And then share economic progress with progress for society, with societal progress and environmental improvement. So what is not shared value? This is not philanthropy. It's not giving some think back to somebody or mitigation. This is not sustainable. Is a part of sustainability, and this is not balancing stakeholder interest. So this is the new category. It's not CSR. It's much more. I guess the roots are in the major scheme of two major types of competitiveness. My Porter, I guess in the 90s, or even 85. So when we hear here, particularly I was sick and tired when I came with our projects to Central Eastern Europe. Everybody was saying, we are competitive because we have cheap labor. I say, how you could build the wealth? How you can build sustainability if you are minimizing cost and keeping low wages? You cannot win with Indians, Chinese, or Vietnamese. You need to think about different type of competitiveness. And this is what we have in the books since the 30s. You know, I mean, product differentiation. And this is the product differentiation which we put the social value, additional values. This is not sharing values, but this is the producing new value, environmental, social, resolving social problems, and so on. Okay, this is about the concept. And then we produced the new definition of effective cluster, because the reason for this project was some European countries spent contribution to cluster subsidies to cluster initiatives from European Union 85 to 95%, and some countries wasted 70, 65, 80%. So the project was to respond to avoid the waste, and then we need to define what we mean the effective cluster. So we presented here. I had the geographers from and the economists from Netherlands, Poland, and from the States, of course. As okay, good. So I will. Anyway, so it was important. We defined the process, making social. Making effective cluster. It takes, this is the process from just the proximity to common actions. And then this process is facilitated by the social capital. And so we checked 12 hypotheses. There are 2 of them that the social capital support cluster integration. And then the integration process produced shared values. Okay, we focus on 2 clusters, one in southeastern part of Poland. As I mentioned, this is one of the poorest region, and in Washington State, where we had 5 organizations. One of them, by the way, INWAC, operates in the eastern Washington State. This is one of the poorest region, and was established to avoid collapse when Boeing moved their facilities. They lost the major employer. So somehow the cluster was itself a type of shared value for this community to survive. Anyway, and then we presented several data we collected. In the case of Aviation Valley, the number of members of the association, cluster association, grow up from 18 to 128. The team leaders, the business leaders invested between 7 and 15% in time in building social capital. So, and then we also took the accounting method, which came out about $430,000 a year. And then when we took into account the time allocated from surveys, it was about $1 million. And then the same, we observed growth of the number of the organizations in Washington State from 1 to 5. And then they produce almost $3 million social capital. So anyway, the time invested in social capital show positive influence on the cluster integration. So then we look, from the performance. Despite the crisis, the sale in this cluster quadrupled between 2003 and 2008, and during the crisis, doubled. So it means, that they reached $2 billion in Poland. In the United States, which over $60 billion, even despite the crisis. So we cluster integration based on social capital produced positive economic results, so contributed to sustainability of this region. And then, because this way the clusters became mature, effective, they could create also the shared value. The region, this is 37% of the average GDP of Poland and 31% of GDP of European Union. So this is one of the 15 poorest regions. And then you see the wages during this time were significantly higher in the cluster than the average in the region, in all major categories. So it means the cluster is bringing wealth to the region. And then what were the examples of shared values? So there are 4 examples here from Poland. Why they needed the cluster established to make the most competitive cluster, not only in Poland, but one of the best aerospace cluster in Europe, to help the backward conservative region, to elevate the wealth. So, and then they learned that they didn't have enough prepared labor force, and not sufficient. So this is why education was very critical for them. So they started from matching curricula with the needs of the industry, and then investing in 12 practical training centers. And then they developed the system of internships and apprenticeship for students in vocational school, so as well as they trained the teachers. Okay, and then they started popularizing technical sciences among teenagers and children polytechnic. So these are, they delivered this. There are examples of they created the centers with a real environment like in business. So graduates went immediately, they got hired. So it means that hit the road hit the target with the excellent program which really took care of the young people. So anyway, and this young generation, as you see here, they got inspired with physics, with technical science, with aerospace. So this is dreams. We heard a lot here, how important, how to have the expectations. This is exactly how we contributed. What is very new, and we compare the social capital achieved by these 5 American and Polish organizations, and then different level, but if we compare the social rate of return on investment, how much social capital they produced from $1 of the asset. So the highest were those grassroots organizations like INWAC, PNNA, and the Polish Aviation Valley. So, and at the end, this is the examples, 5 examples of the shared value in Washington State, Washington Aerospace Training and Research Center, and Joint Center of Aerospace and Technology. We have Boeing Advanced Research Center at the university, and then specialized training centers all over the states. And then, so it means that we need to think about bringing business to shape curricula, to share resources. We need also to include non-governmental organizations, these cluster management organizations, these are NGOs. and typical. And the most effective are those which were established based not on subsidies, public subsidies, but their own business money. So anyway, we should think, if we want to build critical mass for paradigm change, we need to build a big coalition and manage resources. Thank you very much for your attention.